Hi, I'm Edward Unthank. I'm here to talk to you today about how to build a marketing operations center of excellence. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and I really appreciate your sticking the time to talk with me about this subject. Normally, and what I'll be doing at the actual summit presentation is co-presenting with Andy, which is one of our partners at Optimizely, a longtime client of ours. And together we've figured out how to make a real center of excellence that's really going to scale, really help your team, and is pretty much the key in order to use marketing at scale in order to build teams as well as increase your marketing overall. So to kick off here, we want to look a little bit about our agenda. So first, we're curious about what is an actual center of excellence. We'll get deep into that. Why should you actually do a center of excellence? I know that generally there's some different thoughts and schools of thoughts about center of excellence versus distributed building. And we'll get into that a little bit. How to do it is where we're going to try to spend 75% of our time to keep this as hyper valuable as possible. And then finally, we're going to go into the kind of the takeaways and how you can do it at home and immediately into your business. So usually at this point, I'd ask, what do you think a center of excellence actually is? It's a pretty common buzzword at this point in marketing, and it's also pretty abstract. And so really what we consider a center of excellence is some of these abstract things, which is to say, it has key leadership in terms of what's happening in your marketing instance. It's bottled best practices so that you can make sure that there's one consolidated place for people to build and ask for different emails and marketing campaigns. It's a key to scalability, because this is how you bring in new marketing managers into submissions, as well as you scale your marketing operations team, the actual specialists who are building these things. And finally, a key aspect in the center of excellence is how it supports your team, how it supports their training, and how you can kind of work together across teams, especially. So that's kind of a high level of what center of excellence is, but in the specifics and in the nitty-gritty, what we consider center of excellence to be is to say it's a centralized submission process. And that is to say for your campaigns. So currently, a lot of times in a marketing organization, especially B2B, one that has Marketo or marketing automation, you have marketing managers who are coming up with copy ideas, campaign ideas, different recipients of who to send things with. They're the creative type. And then you have on the other end, you have these marketing operations specialists. So marketing operations persons, usually you're looking at people who are more technical. They're happier in the technical than they are in the kind of deep creative side. And so what you're trying to do is in between that, bridging that gap between these creative marketing managers and these marketing operations campaign specialists is going to be that center of excellence. And specifically that means a project management software where you have marketing managers going to the project management software, actually filling out tickets and requests for emails and content. And then you have specialists, and these specialists are going to take that, it's going to turn into their to-do list. It's going to turn into their queue of things that have to be done. The order of projects, the order of emails, as well as maintaining really important things such as a key source of truth for what's in the campaign, who should be in the audience, when should it be sent, and how long does this person have to build these things. So really the center of excellence, it certainly has these kind of abstract qualities of leadership, best practices, scalability, support, and training. But in reality, the practical application and embodiment of that is, in my opinion, a project management system, which is a central submission process, and it goes and is deeply tied, prescriptively tied even, to your marketing program templates, your Marketo program templates that are tokenized and prescriptive. So this is a shared resource between the two different teams. It really bridges the gap between marketing managers and your marketing specialists. Now, the question that frequently comes up is you say, okay, we're a smallish team, and we can do it via email back and forth. When I have a question and I want our marketing operations person to build something, I just shoot that person an email, and then we back and forth 20 times until it sends, and we just work through the details time and time again. Now, the problem with that is that doesn't work at scale. That doesn't work with limited resources. Really, when you're doing that, you're spending way more time building your actual emails, building your campaigns every time. And really the focus of what a marketing technologist should be doing, one aspect, is how to make things as efficient as possible, how to decrease the build time, how to minimize risk, and how to have visibility for higher up in terms of what's the turnaround on campaigns, how are we building them, and are we focusing on the things that actually matter. So why do you need a COE? Because you have limited resources, because you have shifting priorities. So instead of jumping on to the email of the week and the fire of the week, instead you have a to-do list of all of the campaigns, and you can say, this has an SLA of today, therefore I need to fix it and I need to go into it, versus this webinar I have another 3 days to do. And you can manage all of those shifting priorities with visibility and with the ability to actually go in and make those changes. Slip deadlines is really common in one of the pain points before people bring on a center of excellence. You know, if you have things going back and forth on emails, sometimes you don't have threads that work, sometimes you missed visibility, it gets lost in somebody's inbox. And that's exactly the kind of problem that we're trying to solve via center of excellence. And then the final one is inconsistent branding. We're gonna talk a little bit more about this in a minute, but the idea of a centralized submission process is that you have your marketing operations specialist, your Marketo specialist, has deep knowledge of the tool, versus your marketing manager really doesn't. And that's fine. That's a way that we can scale. The marketing manager doesn't need to be an expert at Marketo. Instead, we need to focus on specialties where the creative person is being creative and the system person is doing the system as well as possible. And what that means is instead of having your marketing manager build things in Marketo, you're instead saying, work within these guidelines, give me these certain character counts, and I will handle all of the rest. And we can make sure that way that we have global templates that are on brand, pretty, and not breakable, and you don't have to worry about a marketing manager, you know, accidentally making a typo, forgetting the text section, you know, missing an audience list. There's a lot of problems that happens when you have somebody not entirely specialized in Marketo building in Marketo. And the Center of Excellence strongly divides that labor and then brings them together in kind of a bridge. So frequently at this point, we'd say, you know, who's working on it, who needs it now, and then, you know, who doesn't know why they're here. I'm going to assume that you're here because you need it now and that you should be working on it. So the first step in actually doing this is to increase your internal efficiency. As I said, this is one of the key pillars of the return on investment of a marketing technologist. Things have to be more efficient, that is to say cost saving. And then the second kind of return on investment category for a marketing technologist is more effective. And that's what we're talking about a little bit here. So in order to be efficient and in order to be effective and in order to standardize that within your organization, you need program templates. So program templates, there are a few key elements of program templates. This is a key to making your team actually efficient here. We want them to be tokenized, which is to say we want them to be locked down in their overall design, and we want them to be as efficient as possible. Minimize their build time. You can get the build time down to, you know, something like 15 minutes if you work through all this program templates and you have a center of excellence and you have a trained program for marketing managers to actually use and submit things. The other idea is it has bottled best practices. The idea here is that if you give marketing managers all of the ability to create landing pages and emails, and they have to do it from scratch, what they'll do is they'll end up spending a lot of time on things that aren't important, such as autoresponders. We've found over time, and working with a lot of different clients, that there are some things that really affect the overall performance and success criteria and success rate of different programs. And those are things like what the content is, what the actual valuable offer is, subject line, the content of the emails, CTAs. But we've also found that there are a lot of things that don't affect effectiveness, don't actually have much of an impact on the results of that campaign. Things like the autoresponder. Things like your one-day reminder for a webinar, the content within that reminder, a 3-day webinar reminder, everything else like that. So whenever possible, those things that a marketing manager will spend time on and will have no incremental effect on the results of that campaign, you should pull out of their hands. You should standardize across the board on templates and within program templates. And the idea of being prescriptive here is that you make marketing managers' life easier, you make your life easier, and you get better results for it, for less time. So the idea with program templates is that we can get a menu of options through them. I also spent a lot of time last year and 2 years ago going over program templates. So along with this video, we'll also have a link to that previous recording. You should check it out. We go really deep into program templates, every one that you need, and really all the details around them. All right, so I think now we're gonna jump into the Marketo instance and actually show you the email 2.0 template that we've been referring to. So this is on our screen. We can see the actual example of the email 2.0 template, master template. And specifically what we've done is I've taken this master template, which has, you can see here on the right side, all these modules, enormous amount of different modules, different kinds of backgrounds, some with images, some with CTAs, some multiple column with CTAs, headlines, body text, CTAs. Dividers are really important. Dividers are super important actually, because you can make more modules and move things around so that you have more flexibility that way. And then you have, all these other subpoints. You have newsletter organization, speakers in the case of webinars, and then footers with your legalese and everything else like this. So basically you can imagine every email template that you've ever worked with, all the different designs, elements of those, and compile those all into one template that all works together. It's all based on one base HTML. And then you just imagine making that ginormous and saying, we're going to selectively show and hide different sections based on what our use case is and what the goal of that email is. So this is an example of a single CTA email. This is super valuable for things like nurture, individual email casts, anything where you have a one and done goal. You say, we're going for broke, you need to click on this conversion link. If you don't click on that, we consider that a failure. Having single CTA is really helpful because it zeroes you in on what success criteria is ahead of time. And you can see in this actual template here, it's pretty basic. We have a header, a preview line. We have a major section here with a background image and a CTA. And then you can see the actual content of this just involves headline, body text, including individual value propositions as bullet points, and then contextual CTA and a literal CTA on this. So this is an example. It comes from a master 2.0 template, and you can also imagine all the different things that you can build, all the different kinds of emails that you can build based on this master email 2.0 template. But just as an idea of what else you can do with the exact same email template, this exact same master email 2.0 template, is you can have, basically taking the same thing, have an entirely different look and feel for something like a newsletter. Newsletter is, well known to be very complex. It's big, it's complex, you change the sections, it's really hard to tokenize because the content changes each time. And so here's an example of how you could do it. You can see we've swapped out the header here, so we have a little bit more inbound links. We're not focused on a single CTA. This isn't a all or nothing kind of email. We're looking to kind of have, you can see even in the content here, a little letter from the editor's style piece here. And then we have individual things that are interesting for the month, interesting updates, different things that people can download, everything else like this. Into different sections. We can have a primary section here, and then a little bit lower we can have a secondary section. And the benefit of being able to do this, or really this is only addressable and possible to be done by master email templates 2.0. And certainly it's a different UI. If you haven't switched over in your admin section of Marketo to 2.0, I definitely suggest that you do that. Having done both, it's significantly a better experience, and it means that it's much easier for you to actually build and incorporate within your overall structure that you want to do here. So let's jump back into this this template right now, this PowerPoint. All right, so the third step about building a center of excellence is that you need to increase alignment and visibility. This is really the key functionality of your project management software. It's really where the things come together. You have the program templates that are built based on the email templates and the landing page templates. It's all use case specific, it's all channel specific. And now you have that all pre-packaged and tied with a bow. It's really gorgeous. And now it's to take that training and get the marketing managers on board with it. And so this is a little long process. I'm going to start with some of the technical stuff, and I'm just going to actually jump into a little demo here to show you what things can look like. This is an old version, so really you should have a project management software, and you should configure that customized based on the individual sections, the individual tokens of your program templates. But imagine the case that you have a really simple email. It's a nurture email, and it's a nurture cast email. And so what you want to do with that is coming into here. This is a really easy starting place and mostly free for most persons. If you're a Google Apps company, what you can do is you can create Google Forms that are going to be these intake forms. You can have a different form, and it can be linked to each different program template, and it's going to be aligned to tokens. And so this is an example of a lead nurture, single section, very basic nurture template. Basically what you need to do is you can imagine this is the marketing manager's job to fill this out. What they do is they say what their nurture name is, they fill out a subject line, they fill out a preview line, and then they do some email text tokens, some call to actions, and then they finally get into the real meat of it right down here, where you're talking about what's the headline, what's the body copy, and what's the second section of body copy. The idea is that here, paired with a red line, which is to say screenshots of the emails and landing pages that are sectioned and have little red boxes that are aligning everything. Taking those and combining those, we end up getting this submission form. And so a marketing manager's job is to go through and fill out everything on this. And then once she or he is complete, you can go into and you have optional tagging categories, like if it's an awareness research, buyer personas, what product interest it is. Finally, they can go through and they can hit the submit button. This submits it into your actual Google Sheet, and this is where you can tie it into. So for example, Asana is a really good starting point for this, is because you can integrate Google Forms to go into Asana and actually use that as running your system. It's a really easy starting place. Basically what you do is you go through in Google Forms, every single text token, every single rich text token that you have in the system, you want to make sure that it's all built out and topical, and you come up with character limits, you have a little description of what every single section does, and then basically the final answer is that they go through here, fill this out, they should have no questions about it. It's your job to make sure that they don't have questions about it, which is to say build it in a way that's intuitive. And they go through and they fill all this out. This goes into your system. So basically that's kind of the way that we imagine this, the central process, the central submission, is you have all of these different requests from your marketing managers, and it goes into your same project management software. And this is where you're running your marketing operations team. You're running your marketing operations to-do list, because this is a new, requests for campaigns that comes into the central submission process. And then you say, okay, great. Now we have this great to-do list. We say each one of these items is going to be a different item to do. And each one, we only act on this. This is the big pain point that we can solve. We only act on this once we have it fully completed by the marketing manager. And then what we say is, okay, now we'll have this completed and back to you by the next stage in a certain service level agreement. And so that's exactly what you can do here. Is this turns into a little checkbox of your to-do list with due dates. It has it with what the SLA time is. It has the person, and you can quickly manage and see, this kind of process. You can quickly see what your average response follow-up time is per different campaign. You can see who is in, I generally recommend that you also have a miscellaneous bucket for these different requests. And so if we have a lot of people entering into a miscellaneous bucket, then you know that you need to develop a new intake form for a different type. You have something that marketing managers are using, but it doesn't really fit into the rest of them. And so either you need to train them into how it fits into these different channels, these different types of campaigns, or you need to say, they're right, we have something, this is a good case for something new that we need to build. Resuming now that the siren has faded. So this is really a key in order to scale your team. This is the center of excellence. This is where you have one team, the project managers up top, communicating with your marketing operations person. It's in a system. It's in a source of truth. It's really easy to scale your marketing operations team this way because you train them not on how to deal with the up here and all the back and forth, and you're not having to intro to 1 out of 100 marketing managers on your different teams, but they all go through a central process, central submission process, goes into a project management, and then a new MOPS person can just be assigned tickets from here. A new MOPS specialist can be assigned tickets to here, go through it. It's a to-do list. You can have managers tracking the response time, how many things are slipping through the cracks. And then you can also measure SLAs and make sure that your marketing managers are happy and the team that runs the marketing managers is also happy. To jump back into the PowerPoint here for a second, there are some key pieces that we're looking at for change management, project management tools. That's vital. That is this circle in the middle. This support tickets. These are the individual requests that people fill out. I just went through that example of a nurture program. You're going to have a different support ticket template for every major type of communication you're doing. If you're doing an email, one-off email, if you're doing a nurture email, if you're doing a nurture build, if you're doing a webinar, event, content program, list import, all of these should have corresponding tickets and ticket templates. And a marketing manager it's a holistic, it's entirely comprehensively all the information that you need in order to do things. And you can create the system in between that's the communication, the handoff between those two. And that's where the content handoff templates come into play. And that's really the content handoff template is really where it comes together. The other thing that we find, so this is the change management process, which is difficult. It's certainly difficult. Many companies are in the place where they need this. They need it. Everyone knows that they need it. MOPS people know that they need it, but the marketing managers don't want to deal with it because they right now have a direct line to people. They can walk over to your desk and say, hey, can you tweak this? Say, can you change the subject line? Can you change the CTA? Can you make that red instead of blue? Can you change the spacing and the font size? And that exact distraction is what we need to get away from. We need to standardize away from that. And so how do you go from we have a wild, wild west situation for building into how do we become an organized, centralized center of excellence that can do everything into a consolidated system, and we can really scale and really turn this into a whole black box that works incredibly well? And the answer is a few different things. So what we've found before, we've done this a lot, and especially we can come in as consultants and be the bad guy, which is, pros and cons. But what we've found is it's best to have, first you need an executive champion. You absolutely need an executive champion. Even if you're talking about somebody agrees with this, you don't need somebody to just sign off on a high level. You need somebody to send communications and to crack the whip and to say that this is happening whether the teams like it or not, and we're going to make it as pleasant of an experience as possible. But you can't be the guy screaming in the corner saying that we need to fix things if you're not in a position where somebody has to listen to you. You can certainly whisper in the ear of an executive, and then that executive can parrot what you just said, and then you can actually get movement and buy-in on these things. So executive buy-in, absolutely necessary. Generally, what we find is we agree with a consultant, or as a consultant, we agree with a director, VP, CMO level, and we say this needs to happen. And then we go through all the rigmarole and all the steps of it, and then we can say, great, here's a copy-paste message that you need to send to your team in order to say this is happening at this timeline. Here are our steps. Here's a mandatory training. Here's a second mandatory training. Here's office hours in order to make this all work and ask questions and talk about things. In terms of a pilot program, you should do a pilot program if you're especially in an area opposed to change. And what I recommend doing is you say, so marketing operations, you say there's a new center of excellence, there's a new submission process, it'll make your life easier, marketing managers, it'll make our life significantly easier also. We're going to see net cost savings. We're going to see the same, if not better, effectiveness of campaigns. We're going to be able to package reporting to you every single time. It's all going to be standardized. It's all going to be beautiful. Everyone can be happy and love it. A lot of times marketing managers aren't really happy with that reality. And so what you should do, what we do in a case of politically difficult situation, where marketing operations is treated as manual labor and you need to put in 80 hours a week, we can say, great, pushback time. First, what we're going to do is we're going to identify a pilot. We're going to do a pilot. It's going to be less scary. Things aren't changing all at once. We're going to identify a few marketing managers who are the key champions and usually outspoken people, and we're going to win them over. So what you do is you say, instead of your team of 20 marketing managers, you're going to start with 3 people. You're going to take one of the loudest and most controversial and one of the most well-respected marketing managers, and you're going to make sure that that person is in that group. And then what you do is you bend over backward, you get their buy-in, you say, this is our process, tell me what you don't like about it, tell me what needs to be fixed. You compromise on things. The levers that you can pull are SLAs. This is the key way that you can make everyone happy, because currently, if you have a total nightmare of a system, you can say SLAs are too long. And we can give you shorter SLAs if we adhere to this process. Instead of a marketing email taking 7 days, we guarantee that we can get it back to you within 2 days, so long as you follow our process. And that's actually possible because you can do it faster if you have all of the information, and it can be a net faster agreement between the two. So here's an example of SLAs. We have it on screen. Marketing emails, you can just look at this table. This is a pretty good starting place generally. It should be specific to your business. It should be specific to how much back and forth. We also add SLAs for changes. If they're big changes, we need SLAs, because there's nothing like 1 day before the event having a mega change that requires you to rebuild everything from scratch. And it needs to be communicated ahead of time, an expectation that you asked for a big change. It doesn't seem big in your mind, but it's rebuilding everything. And SLAs are a great lever that you can pull in order to get buy-in from teams. You can promise that. You can say this will happen faster, make your life easier, and everything else like that. It's gonna be good for everyone in the process. So you're moving into this process. What you need to do, you need program templates, you need email templates 2.0, you need landing page templates 2.0, although that's mostly implied at this point. And you need program templates. You need a program template for every channel that's most common that you actually use. And then behind that, below that, you need a program template for every use case specific underneath that channel. So a big example is if you have webinars, there's a difference between an in-house webinar versus a partner webinar. If you have an event, there's a big difference between your annual conference that you support, and that should be very manual because it's an enormous amount of money spent into that, and it should be high returns on that. And there's a difference between that versus a trade show, versus a road show, versus a dinner sponsorship, everything else like that. Anything that's common, you just need to start and stack rank your order of these program templates based on the frequency of them occurring and the amount of time that you can save by shaving off a few minutes. Probably, we look at generally, if you have a really slow process, you can probably shave off 80% of the time for every incremental thing that you do, every single program that you run based on a program template. If you have a pretty efficient system, you're probably only shaving off 20%. But still 20% multiplied out by 20 a week, it's a lot of time savings. And eventually you're talking about headcounts, and you can talk about we need to spend time on developing better program templates instead of doing all this monotonous grudge work of campaign building. So program templates, you need a project submission software, you need to get the team to buy in, and you need things like weekly alignment exercises, especially in the first quarter. This is where you say, great, let's review what we have in the queue, in the pipe. Does everyone see their thing? Does everyone agree with the timeline? This is the timeline, but does anyone have any roaring exceptions to make? And then you need to document absolutely all of it. This is a key piece, and that's how you get buy-off between teams. And the entire point of this is to scale. You need to scale your team, you need to scale marketing management, you need to scale actual programs and volume of things that you're doing. And the key to doing that is documentation so that people can learn as they go and it's not tribal knowledge that gets lost. So to move on here, one of the key things is making sure that you have a project management tool. Frequently in large organizations, there are other teams who actually have project management tools, and without cost, you can probably sneak onto theirs as a pilot before you say that this needs to be an actual tech budget line item for marketing. And some of the key learnings that we've learned from this: frequency of communication. This is vital. We've taken this and rolled into a sprint plan, which is, say, every 2 weeks we reassess priorities. We say how many sprint points there are, how many are left, what can we do with things, and then that basically gives kind of a numerical value of something in every request that somebody asks. And this is really valuable. For example, if somebody says, hey, I need a last minute webinar invite to go out, I can say, great, well, we're all booked up for this week, so that's worth 3 sprint points. Which of these other things do you want to cut? And that quickly becomes, oh, this isn't a free thing that you can add on, that there's actual cost to this request. You should speak consistently in the first quarter. You should speak at least weekly, have a meeting. It can be mandatory to start in the first month and optional after that. And that's where you can iron out a lot of the details. Especially in that first time, you want to make sure that people don't have pain that's going unspoken, because that's how you get resentment and people who are kind of skirting around the rules. Executive buy-in, you need it. It's vitally important. You cannot do this. You cannot do change management without somebody's boss saying that change is coming, and change will happen regardless of where we are now. And yes, it's painful, but yes, it's happening. Prioritization and SLAs. SLAs are enormously valuable. Service level agreements that says that you're going to do something in a certain amount of time, a certain amount of business days. It's useful for you. It's useful for them. It's useful for management reporting. It makes everyone happy after they're implemented. Once everyone agrees that they're SLAs, you stop getting sneaker meetings, people just walking over to your desk and asking for changes and asking for things. It's all consolidated in one place. You can prove the amount of things that you're doing because it's all in one area. You can take off for vacation because it's really easy for somebody else to go into this project management tool, reassign the tickets to themselves, and keep on building without random knowledge of email threads and who knows what not. You got to document everything. And you have to take your internal customers and turn them into champions. That's really vital you need to take, it's vitally important in order to change management. If you're in an organization that's really resistant to change, to take a marketing manager or two and turn them into vocal champions of this process. Buy them lunch, buy them dinner, butter them up, anything that you need to do, you make this their pet project also, and they will go to bat internally on that team. That's how you get cross-team alignment, and you minimize resentment for this kind of change. A key learning also is you need a checklist for the build process. So we mentioned all of this part here. This is its own beast. We have build, we have QA, we have test. This is its own process. You should probably establish actual checklists for this QA list and for the build list to make sure you're doing text tokens, make sure you're filling out every individual meta tag, you're doing all the program tokens, you're testing in Litmus or email and ACID, and you have multiple people in the pipe, so you know that it's not just, as everyone I'm sure has realized and known from building things. If you build a webinar and you've been spending 16 hours on it, at a certain point, you don't even read the words on the screen anymore. You don't even see them. There could be profanities in there, and I wouldn't even notice it at hour 12 of building a webinar. And that's why it's vital you have one person do 90% of the work and the build, and then you have somebody else with fresh eyes QA that work. And having a handoff process between that is vital, and it's something that you need to grow. And the other thing that's really important is to actually identify what those bottlenecks are in the process and iron them out and assess those early. Make sure that nobody is grumbling on the marketing manager team. Make sure that you have a mole on the marketing manager team to feel out how people feel about these things and to proactively address them before they complain to you. So as a quick recap here and an overall, I hope this is super valuable to you. This is a pet project of mine and a super interest of mine. I think this is key to scaling things. Center of Excellence is exactly the kind of project that we need to do as a marketing technology community, marketing operations community, to actually grow and establish this not as a random tangent to things, but as a core fundamental to doing marketing, B2B marketing, B2C marketing, everything else marketing. And so, there are a lot of lessons also that we've learned through this. And you can see a lot of the footnotes actually too. And there's a link on the screen right now, etumos.com/next level. Feeling generous, throw in some UTM campaigns for us that are optional. That'd be great. I get a giggle every time that I look through analytics and find those on there, so I super appreciate that for brightening my day. But also, if you're looking at program templates, we have a guide on program templates. We just went out and published that. If you're looking at email programs, we have published right now on that link. You can see our email 2.0 template we're giving away for free. We have a landing page 2.0 template. It's all meant to be super robust so that you can do all of this on your own, and you can learn just enormous amounts of information for the kind of things that we're doing. So thanks so much. I really appreciate your time, and thanks for sticking with me through all of it. Also, you should click this link. That's right. Click that link.